When students are asked to use density in problems, oftentimes they resort to using the density equation. However, for problems that use density, you in fact don't need to use an equation if you understand what density actually means. So in this video I'm going to show you a couple of examples of how you can apply density to solve a problem using density without actually using any algebra. For example, let's say we have a substance with a density of 8 grams per milliliter. And we have a volume of that sample that's 2 milliliters in size. Can we find the mass? Well, in fact, you can find the mass quite easily without resorting to algebra. And the way you do that is to look at exactly what does this mean. Well, the density means that if you have a sample size of 1 milliliter, because the denominator per milliliter means 1 milliliter in size, and a milliliter is a cubic centimeter, so there's about a cubic centimeter. If you put that sample on a balance, it's going to register a mass of 8 grams. That's what a density of 8 grams per mil actually means. Okay, so in our sample, we are given the volume in milliliters, and we don't have 1 milliliter. If we did, we'd have a mass of 8 grams, and we wouldn't have to do any arithmetic at all. In fact, we have a mass of 2 milliliters, so we have double that volume. And if we have double the volume, then that means in order to keep the density constant, we must have double the mass. So in order to figure out the mass, we would simply take 8 grams and multiply it by 2, because we have twice the volume in our sample that we would have in an 8-gram sample, which is 1 milliliter. And so our answer comes out to 16 grams. Now, oftentimes when students approach problems like this, the numbers aren't this simple. And so since they can't do the math in their heads, they think they can't understand how to do the problem without the algebra. But in fact, the reasoning stays the same regardless of how complex the numbers get. Okay, now in the next problem, which is even a little bit harder, we're going to see that we can also apply reasoning to solve it without algebra. So let's go back to our density of 8 grams per mil. And this time, instead of the volume, we're given the mass. And let's say we have a mass of 24 grams. And the question is, what's the volume? Well, again, if you really understand what density is telling you, you can do this without solving an equation. How do you do this? Well, we know that if we have 1 milliliter, that's going to have a mass of 8 grams. We don't have 8 grams. We have more than that. We have 24 grams. So how can we find out how many milliliters in 24 grams? Well, if we know how many times 8 goes into 24, we'll find out how many milliliters we have, because every time we count off 8 grams, that corresponds to 1 milliliter. And as you can see here, we know that 8 goes into 24 3 times, so that's how many milliliters we have. We have 3 milliliters in our sample. And again, just like the last one, when the units get, or the numbers get more complicated, students tend to think, well, I can't do this problem because they can't see the answer in their head with the mental math. And let's do that out specifically here. Let's say instead of a nice whole number like 24 grams, let's say we have a mass of 0.523 grams. Can we apply the same reasoning? Of course we can, and you can see here, since we don't even have 8 grams, we have much less than a milliliter. We have a fraction of a milliliter. What fraction of a milliliter we have? Well, we need to find out how many times 8 goes into 0.523, and that will give us our volume. So obviously this problem, you would want to use a calculator to find that ratio to 3 sig figs, and the answer comes out to 0.0654 milliliters. However, the reasoning stays the same.